This podcast contains descriptions of extreme violence, body horror, and adult language. Please check the description for details. Viewer discretion is advised. You wake with a start. The last thing that you remember, the moment before you wake up, is that voice. For the first time ever, you managed not only to pick up the phone yesterday, but you also managed to hear a voice which was not somehow bleeding in from the outside world. You actually heard a voice which there is a sense of memory behind it. There is a sense of familiarity. While normally I might make this a moment where I would hand off to you a particular mechanic that is used in Necronica, which is memory fragments, I am not going to grant it to you yet, because you've only remembered just one word, which was your own name. And again, for context for folks, memory fragments basically are going to be allowing Vex to clear, I believe it lets you clear Bloodthirst more often, in sessions, basically. That's actually something I may as well bring up now, just because I guess it's fairly game relevant. The clearing of Bloodthirst is done on a session-to-session basis, and for those who are unaware, each session that we run is not one episode of this podcast. It's going to be like several episodes of the podcast. So for the most part, in terms of, how often Vex is going to be allowed to refresh stuff like that, just trust that it is basically being kept track of every 3-4 episodes. I'm sure you'll be able to tell when it is that we've sat down for another evening. But with that in mind, you wake with a start, and you kind of have this... You're not, like, in a panic or anything, but it takes you a brief moment to register where you are again. That level of, like, confusion that comes with those nightmares which kind of get you on that uncanny, uncomfortable feeling. You, for a brief second, just don't realize where you are. Your head was elsewhere, and you take a second to look around and recognize that, oh yeah, this is your apartment, and you're gonna guess it's the morning. It's always fairly difficult to tell in Hope's Rise, considering the lack of sunlight thanks to the sheer number of high rises. But you have a day ahead of you. You've got various plans, I imagine. Feel free to take it away.
After, probably spending some time in bed just clutching the blankets to her chest and trying to recenter herself while also replaying that small, fleeting moment that she remembered in her head over and over again. Eventually, she does get up, grab whatever is in her apartment that's, the closest to going bad, eats that, and then, since she doesn't have a job lined up and she has this time, free time is an opportunity to seize when it comes to this line of work, so she's gonna probably start gearing up to head out to Eferai in the No Man's Zone.
absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head with the difficulty of this kind of line of work, or rather the difficulty of living in the city to find free time. It's not as if everyone is constantly busy all the time, but it is. If you are a dweller, if you're unaffiliated, your life is your time comes at a premium, and people are trying to get hold of that time for good reason. And it's really, as mentioned last time, it's only since this 2-year mark that you've actually found yourself having moments like this, where you can pursue your own goals. That being said, I do want to quickly ask, how much favor do you have left over from last time? Because that you did end up having to hand out a bit of it to various people.
I currently have 1.
Right. So, this is a little something I want to introduce to yourself and everybody. So, as we mentioned, favor is like money, literal favor. It's kind of like a nebulous concept of what it represents, but the fact that it represents money is something that I want to define a little bit more here. I am very much going to be treating it, or envisioning things, as you essentially treating each point of favor as sort of like points of wealth, if that makes any sense.
Resources, yeah.
Yeah, so when you have 0 favor, like completely 0 favor, I very much imagine that you're going to be in a position where you are so skint that you are like kind of in a spot where you can't even afford food. I'm going to say that like each point of favor can kind of nebulously bounce between representing $100 to 1,000. So very, very all over the place. But to give you an idea of like when you have 1 point of favor as you do right now, it basically means you can pretty happily feed yourself without any issue. But if you want to get hold of anything significant, it's going to be it's going to be either the point of favor spent to do so, or you're going to need to get more favor. So I want to do that because I want to give you a sense of like how well Vex is doing at any given moment, and how like liquid her finances are at any given moment, so that you don't have to like ask every time, basically.
Yeah, and it's really like a nice escape from real life where we don't really have to worry about that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's worth, and also to keep in mind as well, like, it is definitely a struggle here in the city to like keep fed, but your position as a dredge obviously means that when you come into money, it's not an issue to feed yourself. That is not the case for a lot of the civilians in this city. If you do end up in a position where you have 0 favor, however, whether that's through leveling up or obtaining resources, you are by all means going to be in a position where you don't have food. So it is still going to be a concern, just not as often as it might be for other people. With that out of the way, yeah, you get up, you are going to be basically making your way to the no man's land. Eferai has essentially issued a challenge to people of, if you can make your way in and get to Eferai, then they are essentially going to be doing a job of some form of nebulous value for free. Something which is definitely valuable coming from a dredge. Mind you, this goes to your common sense, that it is not going to be a walk in the park, and you are not going to be able to just stroll in. You gather that you are going to have to, if you're not going to prep to get it to go in there, you're at least going to have to go in there on your toes. And that is worth thinking about.
Yeah, she's certainly planning on doing just that. I don't think she's going to I don't think she's going to go out and buy something in particular, but at the very least, she's going to be, looking over whatever maps of the area that she has on hand and, like, essentially planning a route that will get her there the quickest and quietest possible.
Quick question. For you, Vex. I think we've discussed the idea that, like, Vex is pretty into tech. Would that extend to, like, cybernetics as well? Do you reckon that she's kind of browsed some, like, cybernetic shops, or would she be more of a mutations or guns / swords type?
I think she's definitely browsed cybernetics, like, shops. She's probably talked to Stitch a few times about, like, various options and stuff. And she does have a couple enhancements of her own. Nothing, like, too crazy, but she has a couple. And I feel like a lot of the time it's, like, a situation where she'd probably be down to have some more augmentations and stuff, but a lot of them are kind of expensive, and she also...
Oh, for sure.
She also very much values her speed and agility in combat, so she doesn't want anything big and bulky that's going to weigh her down, and of course that means it needs to be, you know, slick and well designed, and, you know, she's definitely browsed and thought about it, though, for sure.
If that's the case, I think one thing I will definitely inform you of, there is... So there is a number of different, like, shops and stuff that you can pick things up from. I mention this because I imagine that this is, like, something that kind of runs through Vex's mind in, like, the ideas of, oh, am I going to prep? Probably not, you know. But you do recall that there is a particular store that does cybernetics and such, which is pretty much, like, on the border of the collectors into the neutral zone territory. You imagine, because they want to keep a very tight grip on that kind of thing, unsurprising considering their, like, debt tactics. What name this place has, we can decide later, or we can decide now, up to you.
I'm down to decide now.
Ooh, maybe something like the Copper Nerve, or something.
Copper Nerve, that's pretty good.
Copper is in the metal. I am aware that I am British AF.
Oh, okay. So... Copper Nerve. Gotcha. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
The Copper Nerve. Lovely. Okay. Yeah. So you briefly bring to mind the Copper Nerve, and you make a note that maybe at some point you'll do a little window shopping there at some point in the future, but you've got other shit to do.
Yeah, and she doesn't have the most money to throw around at the moment either, so...
Oh, not yet. No, for sure. Maybe you can work on that, but for the moment, you get yourself prepped, and you start making your way to the border between the neutral zone and the current no man's land that Eferai is supposedly residing within. It's difficult. There's kind of a... You know the general, like, streets that kind of delineate the territory at the moment, but it's not as if there's any, like, signposting of this stuff, which is why it can be so difficult to keep track of this kind of thing a lot of the time. It's part of the reason why you managed to get ambushed yesterday. And you very much just only really start to recognize that you're definitely in this contested territory when you start to hear, like, the distant sounds of, like, a gunshot every now and then. Not all that uncommon in Hope's Rise by any means, but with how thickly populated and how thickly dense all of the buildings are, it is surprisingly hard for sound to carry. So you do register that there is definitely some shit going on, like, probably at least a couple of streets over, if you were to have a guess at it.
I think that Vex is fairly just out of habit than anything. Even when she's in the neutral zone where there isn't as much constant violence, she still walks fairly briskly and quietly and keeps to herself, just, again, through sheer force of habit. And when she hears this, she takes that as the signal that she's getting close and would leave the sort of main thoroughfares altogether and start ducking through alleyways and side paths that she hasn't necessarily memorized, but at least looked over in her plans, and is going to basically just try to stay out of sight and try to get to where Eferai is as quickly as possible.
If I've got you straight, you're basically looking to try and stealth through these streets unnoticed and do your best to stay out of trouble. So I reckon that in this particular part of the city, that is gonna be pretty tough, but the general architecture of the city is always pretty beneficial to stealth. So I am gonna give that a -1 modifier to make that a 7+ that you need.
Alright.
In which case, with a success on that, I will... Yeah, let's do this. So you are making your way through the streets, and you are doing a really good job of basically keeping to walls, checking corners wherever you can as the main thing, and essentially using your hearing first and foremost to warn yourself of anything that might be coming around corners. It is during these little moments of listening before acting that you catch what sounds like some kind of confrontation. You don't think it's anything that was causing the gunfire earlier, because that seems... You've generally tried to steer clear of any of the gunshots because it's, you know, generally bad news. But you immediately recognize why it is that you managed to stumble into this while avoiding loud confrontations. You hear these two voices, and one of them basically just goes, "You can't keep hiding forever. Come out now and maybe I'll be a little bit more lenient on what my pets do with you." And you hear a brief pause of consideration before another, more distant voice yells out, "You can go fuck yourself, Corvus! I know what you do to anyone that you catch. Same thing you've done to all the pets that you have. I'd have to be insane to give myself up to you." Well, can't blame a man for trying. And you hear the sounds of shuffling feet as a fight continues, essentially. Do you want to look around the corner or just casually try and step away from this?
I would like to definitely look and see if I can catch a glimpse of this man, who he might be with, what's going on exactly. Has Vex heard that name before, by any chance?
Make me a roll and give it a -2, so 8+.
That's a no. Alright.
No. This is... So to clarify, the negative is not your lack of knowledge, it is these guys being not... They are not big fish, you know. Corvus, however, you can identify as being whoever it is that was not behind cover, essentially. You peek around, and you see quite a well-dressed individual. He's got his hair slicked back in this very, businessman-like way. He is holding himself very, straight-backed and quite proper, you know. But it is completely contrasted by the people which surround him. You initially think that these might just be some random idiots who he's got with him, until you take a second more to take in the sight, and you realize that the people that he's surrounded with, they are dressed in tattered clothing of various sorts. There is one unifying thing amongst all of them, which is that they all seem to have this very vacant, almost feral look on their faces, and what seems to be some kind of device attached to the forefront of their heads. He even has a couple of them essentially chained up with collars, leading them as if they were dogs. And you get the feeling that you have just gotten the entire story of what Corvus's deal is. You see that these feral-looking people are rushing a position which you can only imagine the other guy is hiding behind, and there is only a brief moment that you have to register where they are running to before this gout of flames suddenly erupts from the position, and you see that the rather short individual is stood up and is essentially fending all of these people off with a rather homemade-looking flamethrower, but it seems to be incredibly effective at dealing with this situation. You probably wouldn't do well to get involved in this, but that's up to you.
Yeah. What is, as Corvus is having these dogs, for lack of a better word, rush this other man, about how many of them does it look like he has, and does he have a good number of them still, like, surrounding him?
It's not like he has an army of these guys. It seems like he has maybe remaining... There's a lot of charred corpses around. You think that he maybe has, at best, half a dozen remaining. He might have had a dozen total to begin with. You do try and do a quick head count. The corpses that you can see do number roughly between 4 and 7, assuming that some of the charred, blackened remains are in fact them and not other people. But yeah, active and running around, you would guess something like half a dozen.
And several of them, I assume at least a few of these are still guarding Corvus himself.
Yeah, the two that he's got with him, they seem to be quite unsettlingly. The two that he's got on a chain are in better condition, as if he's actually been, like, looking after them, and, like, essentially making sure that they're properly groomed. The fact that they're people is not a stellar addition to that.
It's not great, no. Alright, here's what I'm gonna do. She's going to move not directly towards this conflict or towards Corvus, but instead, dash kind of across whatever road or path that they're on right now, staying behind them. And she's gonna try to see if she can get any kind of position where she is close to him and close to the conflict, but in a position of advantage, either around the corner, or perhaps if she can get inside or on top of a building above them in some way.
So you're just trying to get basically like a bird's eye view of this confrontation.
Pretty much, while essentially getting into potential ambush position.
Okay. Yeah, no, with that roll from earlier, that absolutely covers this. They have not noticed you, and they are absolutely, like, engaged in their own confrontation. You manage to essentially time it so that with the burst of another spout of flame, you use that, eruption of sound and light to cover your quick slipping into another building. You go up 1-2 flights of stairs, and you have a good view out of some now wrecked windows. You can only imagine from gunfire or something similar. What are you looking out for specifically from these two? You just kind of seeing how this shakes out?
Yeah, she's gonna let it play out. She's essentially gonna let it play out up until a point where it looks like the man with the flamethrower might be getting overwhelmed, or something changes. The tide flips.
Okay. Bear with me one moment. I'm just gonna check the stats of something real quick.
What do you mean? There aren't any stats.
What could I possibly mean? There's no stats for flamethrowers in this game. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no combat. Nothing.
Combat isn't the primary purpose of the system or anything.
No.
Right. So, yeah, you watch as this back and forth continues for a moment. It's one of those things where when you're in the heat of battle, no pun intended, things are moving a mile a minute, but you are managing, your brain is working so fast that it takes longer than what it actually is in real life. And so as a passive observer, these things are happening in the course of like a few seconds at a time. You watch as these dog people, essentially, try to kind of move in for this semi-pincer-like attack, trying to essentially divert his fire across 2 different directions with the hope of trying to get the drop on him. Let me make some rolls. So first one is going to be for the unnamed gentleman, and the second one will be for these things. Yeah, so unfortunately for him, the second or 2 that it takes him to finish burning these 2 that are coming in from his right side to then swing around to his left is just enough of a respite from the flamethrower that these 2 do manage to get in and actually start laying into him. He seems to immediately be on his back foot as a result of that, and you can see Corvus starts to casually walk forward, kind of egging on the 2 that he's got chained to him as a result as well. Seemingly not making a rush just in case something goes wrong, but he is closing in.
I think she's going to wait for essentially another moment where Corvus just walks forward, not fast, but like, again, just keeping the distance between him and his quarry close. And when he walks forward, she's going to jump from her position down towards him with her scythes extended.
Alright. Why don't you make that roll, and then I'll get us onto a battle map. Okay, so you begin the combat by dropping out of the window and trying to sink your blades into this Corvus guy pretty much immediately. And your result was 5 total, which is unfortunately a miss. So what happens is, you're dropping down, you've got both of these flicked out, and you are almost expecting him to register what's happening and to like dodge out of the way in time. You fought enough people who are, competent enough that this essentially is not an unlikely situation. Instead, though, seemingly by virtue of him being maybe unpracticed at this, he doesn't move out of the way. And just when you think that you're going to get away with this and sink both of your blades into either side of his neck, you are surprised as when they pierce through his dress clothes, they suddenly meet harsh resistance, and there is sparks as the metal of your own scythe blades scrapes against what you realize now must be some kind of subdermal cybernetic armor. He turns around very clearly shocked at this development, but nonetheless quite pleased that he has that his cybernetic has held up. And he just turns around and goes, "Huh. A new factor to consider. Well, I've got enough dogs for the lot of you." And yeah, we shall begin combat. How much is your attack normally for AP?
It would be 2.
So, feel free to reduce yourself down to 10. You are practiced enough that even with his casual dismissal of your arrival, you are immediately in the battle headspace, and you can immediately move again to do something else. What would you like to do?
Well, having lost the immediate element of surprise, I think what she's going to do is, clearly he's a bit, tougher of a nut to crack than she expected, so might as well eliminate what she assumes to be his primary method of attack. So she's going to try to go for the chained up people that he has with him. for her next attack, again with just her scythes.
Oh no. Right. So fortunately with your bonus there, it does not mean that you risk damaging yourself, which is good. It does mean that it is a total unquestionable miss, however. So you run in, you try to go for a quick one of your typical swipes across multiple limbs, torsos, whatever you can get your scythe blades through. But these dog-like people, they're running off of instinct, completely and purely. So the moment you started moving, there was this instant reaction from them. They aren't fast by any measure, but the fact that they are so attentive to their surroundings meant that they were just... They reacted quicker than a regular human, like, that is burdened by logical thought, essentially. With that, we find ourselves on the 2 individuals who are here. They will be acting simultaneously, but it will, but I will go ahead with... Let's do the mystery man first, since he is in a little bit of a predicament. He is still dealing with these things which are pretty much up in his face. He brings his flamethrower to bear, and once again lets loose. Let's make him a roll. I do not believe that this has any bonus. I think he is immediately going to...
Holy shit, man.
Yeah, I think he's immediately going to use support from his... I believe it's his elbow that he can do that. His arm, just... Yeah, so he can immediately spend an extra 1 to make that a 3 cost total and push that over into an 11, meaning it does an extra 1 damage. So with the combination of it being a blast attack, explosive, and +1 damage, he does not even have to make the chain attack on this group for it to just immediately get wiped out. He sweeps it across like a fan, realizing that he is currently in a position where he does not have to keep track of Corvus, who is now distracted with yourself, and just takes it as an opportunity to just fucking, like, essentially empty one of the smaller tanks on the underside of this thing. And there is a brief yelp from the multitude of dog people as they all burn in horrible agony to the floor, most likely for their own betterment, considering their state of mind. But they are gone. So I need to check something. I believe chain attacks can be made even if it's a different range, so he might be able to immediately follow this up. Yep, it does not need to be the same target. So yeah, he just is going to make another roll, and he is still in range, so he's going to go for the guys that you just missed. That is another hit. So I believe...
Glad I didn't ambush this guy.
Yeah, no kidding. So he manages to nail these guys and cuts down their numbers pretty much in half. So they are reduced in number to 3. Yeah, so the remaining ones which are around Corvus, which weren't his 2, like, prized pets, it seems, they suffer a similar fate, as once he's finished fanning it around him, he does an immediate 180 to once again slam another fuel tank into this homemade flamethrower, and with surprising precision, almost like a knife being cut through the air, just does a vertical upward strike with this thing, as the weaker looking ones in front of you also burn to a crisp. So that is going to put him down to 3? By 3, rather, I should say. Simultaneously, Corvus is... He just pulls out a knife, It is nothing fancy, not particularly intimidating, all things considered. But in a simultaneous move, he does also let go of the two chains of his two dogs, and goes, "Sick 'em, boys!" And they go for you. So that will be on their turn. They will be going for you, but you might be able to take care of them before then. Until then, here is a knife strike. Oh, he does get you. He does get you unless you do something about it.
Yeah, I know that's gonna get me.
So a 9, I believe that's going to be hitting your arms. Is that correct?
Yep, I will do that. He's gonna stab her in the shoulder.
Yeah, you're a little. You're on your back foot, and it's only when he says "sick 'em, boys" that you turn your head, and he's already on top of you, driving his knife into your shoulder. It's not all that bad, all things considered, but the fact that he managed to get a chump shot like this off on you, you kind of chide yourself for the fact that you got so distracted by the fucking annihilation that this flamethrower was causing. That being said, you may react in kind.
I think what she's gonna do, she kind of stumbles back a bit from getting stabbed with the knife, and normally, for the less experienced fighters of the city, that would mean that it's the time to press your advantage, but Vex immediately regains her balance, puts the ball of her foot on the ground behind her, and is just going to immediately, again, scythes curved to either side of her, dash forward again, and just cleave completely through this man.
Alright, roll for it.
Okay, good.
That is legs. So,
and you know I'm gonna use God of Death to make this or not God of Death, Calamity to make this an area attack.
Excellent. So, he is going to use his armor skin to reduce the damage. How much damage is this doing?
It would just be 1 damage for the moment.
Right. So, by the nature of your blades, it is an issue getting through this subdermal cybernetic armor. You watch as there is that streak of red that happens, but you feel that it does not find purchase. The only consolation that you get out of it is that you register that he only just managed to seemingly get some of his stronger armored parts in the way of this in time, that if you followed up shortly, you may be able to actually nail him properly. That being said, you manage to wheel around and you are dealing 1 damage to the other guys here, right? The dogs.
Yes, and in addition, I do have chain attack, so I can attack him again at the same time.
If I'm not mistaken as well, I believe you said there's an area attack, so that's going to do double damage to them, meaning that you once again, in the same swing that you fail to penetrate his own armor, he looks down at you as you are coming down onto the floor, does this smirk as if to say, like, better luck next time, and in the same breath that he was about to make that comment, he watches as two of his pets fall to the ground dead. Hey everyone, it's time for a little break. I'm a little quiet today just because I'm in the middle of editing very late into the night, even for myself. So we're going to do our shilling real quick and also give a few thanks to people who provided prompts for the characters this episode. So first off, I just want to say thank you to South American Coipo for the prompt that inspired Corvus, and also a thank you to Bardin for the prompt that inspired Leon. Can't thank you enough for putting the time in to throw me those prompts in order to make those characters. I also want to thank you for just continuing to listen. If you want to find more of my stuff, then I stream pretty regularly over on twitch.tv/eternal_savvy, and that is pretty much the same at that you can find me anywhere else on the internet. If I'm on a website, it's going to be at eternal_savvy. That includes Blue Sky and, of course, Patreon. You can also find me on YouTube on the same at, as well as my VOD channel for my Twitch, at staying_savvy. That's the only place where it's a little different. But if you want to support me, for as little as $1 a month, you can get the episodes ahead of time. So right now, if you are hearing this on YouTube or on one of the podcast platforms, you can get a hold of episode 5 immediately. And you can support me for a little more if you feel like you want to and you're just being generous. But even if you support for the small amount of $1, you'll still get the episode. Alright, I'm like super tired, so I'm not going to belabor the point. Thanks so much for watching. Let's get back to the episode.
They fall to the ground dead, and that's the thing with Vex. Once she gets the momentum going with her constant dance of blades, she just can keep going. So I'm going to attack again. Alright, miss with that one.
That is in fact a miss, yes. However, you are keeping the pressure on.
So yeah, she manages to slice 2 of them to pieces, so there's 1 left and him, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that is correct. You watch as the remaining pet, unperturbed by the death of his allies, simply runs at you and goes for a attack. That is going to be a 3 cost, and let's see how he does. Oh, how do you want to flavor this natural 1, which is about to have this pet hit his master?
Oh, that's a fun question. I think, right, like, after Vex slices through him, but, you know, the blades don't find purchase against his armor, he turns around, you know, to gloat a bit, sees that not only has she already cleaved apart 2 of the other dogs, but the final one leaps towards her, and while she is just glaring directly at him, she just ducks.
Yeah, this thing goes sailing through the air. Its teeth bared, and yeah, no, it lands on Corvus and manages to tear a pretty hefty bite out of his stomach as he pulls away with a horrible gulp as it greedily swallows a chunk of his master's own flesh. Only after does the thing look up and suddenly realize what it's done, and then whimper and cower onto its back legs. Corvus looks down at him, like obviously shaken, and just has this judgmental sneer come across his face, and you can see that he doesn't say anything now, but he's definitely, like, intending to punish this thing later. With that in mind, it is himself and the flamethrower man next. And let's see, I think what he's gonna do, he's gonna go in with his knife again. And at the same time, I think that the mystery guy kind of reloading another tank of fuel into his flamethrower, kind of yells over to you and just goes, "Hey lady, back up!" And is gonna let loose at the same time. So let's roll for Corvus first this time. That is barely a hit. Do you want to do anything about it?
I'm going to hinder that with my foot part.
Lovely. So you just essentially go on, you basically like shift your weight and just like kick his wrist to just completely like send his swipe upwards. And at the same time, let's see how the other guy does. Ooh, unlucky. The momentum of you backing up at the same time as Corvus going in and, like, pursuing you, by the time he's looked up, he's essentially, like, kind of half panickedly just goes to, like, immediately fire without checking where he was aiming first. And by the time he's finished, he realizes that you guys have moved away from where he thought you were when he was in the middle of reloading. He does get to chain attack for free, so let's try that again. Right. I think, is it safe to say... Now, be honest here. I think it's safe to say that you're allied with this mystery guy right now, right?
At the current moment.
Oh no. Oh dear. Yeah, no, that is unfortunately going to be... that is going to be 1 damage to you. And because it's an explosive attack, you do get to pick where on your body that 1 damage goes, but by the nature of it being explosive, you will also have to take 1 damage to an adjacent location.
In that case, let's just have it scorch her legs and body. So I will get rid of entrails and get rid of one of the legs.
In the midst of all of this, he tries desperately to get himself to react quickly enough to get it away from you, but it is not in time. It once again sails up into the air, but not before you feel the sting of your nerves just being completely burnt away by the makeshift napalm, which rakes across your right thigh and stomach. He immediately yells out, "Sorry! I'm still sorry!" And it is his turn and the dog's turn. Again, he is gonna go for another shot. The dog is gonna be able to try and get 1 hit in on you, however. Oof. Big oof. That is your head. That will be only 1 damage though. Where are you about to get bitten and summarily injured?
Just, the logistics are a bit weird. I'll take it to the jaw. So, basically, like, he like, probably rakes his jaws along, like, kind of Vex's neck and mouth area.
Yeah, I very much imagine that as he just gets a hold of your throat, which I'm envisioning as part of the jaw. Yeah, he jumps at you. I can only imagine the pain of the fire was enough to let him get that shot in on you, and you now have this nasty neck wound. However, let's see. That is a miss and a miss. The mystery guy, now overcorrecting and too afraid to accidentally hurt you again, just completely undershoots it, and you see the fire kind of spray at your feet, failing to make purchase with this dog. It is simultaneously yours and Corvus's turn.
Oh boy.
Unsurprisingly, he's taking advantage of this situation, and he is moving in for another knife strike. It's nothing fancy, but hey, it works. But not this time.
Yeah, with this thing, I think what happens is he can't quite get a clean strike with this, with his, pet on top of her at the moment, and she essentially grabs him, rolls to the side, and, like, basically he can't quite get a clean shot as she essentially shoves the dog off of her and manages to roll back into a crouching position again. I am, of course, going to attack Corvus again. Oh my god. Well, alright, we've entered the bad roll zone on all sides.
Oh, thank God for your +1, though, avoiding all of those critical misses.
I imagine she just goes for another strike, but he just saw her get into the crouched position. He's able to block it with his armored parts again.
All right. It is once again the Mystery Man. I think this time he saw you dealing with these pets easily. So this guy knows that Corvus has, you know, this armored skin, and knows that his flamethrower is going to be better at getting through it than any physical blades that you've got. So he turns his attention to Corvus. Let's see how he does. Well, okay then.
Alright, he's gotten over
it. He makes the right choice, because Corvus, in an effort to keep himself at a safe distance from you after every strike, made the mistake of leaving himself open to being burnt to a fucking crisp. That is gonna be 1 to his head, then another to his arms, and then 1 to his torso, and then another one to his legs. Another one. Yeah, no, you watch as his fine suit just absorbs and catches flame, thanks to the napalm, pretty much immediately. He just turns into a living tiki torch. He's still up, he's still moving, but there is just this sudden, just as he suddenly starts to burn. And with that, him having a bad time. It is Doggo. Doggo is not the correct endearing term for this fucking horror show.
No, it's not. It's not.
It really isn't. Horrible man pet, and yourself once again. You may act one last time since you are on the 1 count. Oh, the dog is just going to go and attack you, unsurprisingly.
She is going to she's kind of somewhat focused her bloodlust upon Corvus at this point. So even though he's getting fucked, might as well fuck him even harder. She's going to run away from the dog and try to just slice into him yet again.
Go for it.
I am gonna spend a bloodthirst point and reroll it at this point.
All right, go for it. So add a bloodthirst to one of your bonds. Yeah, you feel the rush, you feel the frustration, you feel your blood pump, and you feel just that need to kill.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, nope, didn't work. Same roll. Alright.
Your bloodthirst gets the better of you, and you are unsuccessful. Reduce your action count. Oh no! Oh no! That's another hit to the head from the man dog.
Come on, man! All right.
This is a brutal system, man.
So this is just 1 to the head again.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't using my brain anyway. This combat.
Alright, I think the way that shakes out then is this thing goes in for just this feral strike to your head, and it hits you in such a fashion you feel your skull crack, and you feel like that kind of rattling that happens in your brain when you've just basically gotten concussed. You get the feeling that may not have just been a concussion. That might have been strong enough that you may have suffered some pretty bad damage to your brain there. It is at this moment, I should mention, could you make me a roll, please? Just no bonuses or anything. You feel as the weight of that strike hits the base of your skull. You feel the crack. You feel the scrambling of your thoughts. And you get the feeling that should have killed you. But you aren't dead. You're still kicking. And something... You're just too shaken to fully realize exactly what's happening, but in that moment, you feel the world kind of dull to you for a brief moment before all of a sudden you feel your nervous system just electrify. You do not lose 1 point of the AP bonus that your brain gives you. So you managed to retain one of them, as something very weird just happened in your body in response to what may have been a lethal strike on anyone else. Yeah, that being said, you feel your electrified nervous system push you forward, and you manage to get yourself onto your fucking feet and fighting again. It is your turn.
Please, roll 20. Just, please.
Come on, dice. Be nice.
Alright, let me just make sure I can't do anything to potentially help myself. Do I re-roll again?
That is a lot of bloodthirst.
That's a lot of bloodthirst. I think what happens is she feels, obviously, her adrenaline spiking through the roof, her nervous system electrified, as you said. And her eyes, just the blood vessels within them are turning them almost a pure red, quite literally just seeing a red haze. And she doesn't, what happens is she leaps towards Corvus, and she doesn't manage to land a truly good hit on him. But in his haggard, burnt state, she at least is just thrashing her blades wildly against his armor and just glaring down at him and almost just growling haggardly as she just repeatedly slashes into him in a frenzy.
He is pulling back, just dancing on his heels, almost stumbling over himself to try and get away from you in just as frantic of a frenzy as you are trying to kill him. It is only by virtue of his sheer panic and your lack of finesse that this manages to go without any kind of successful strike. With that being said, it is Corvus and the mystery guy. So at this point, Corvus is gonna make a roll. I think that he doesn't fully understand exactly what just happened to you. Like, he doesn't manage to, like, register whether or not that strike that hit you in the head was meant to be lethal or anything. So he thinks he's still kind of, like, in it, because he doesn't realize that you just essentially did something superhuman. So with that in mind, I think he is going to hedge his bets one last time. He looks to you, the fire on him kind of dying down a little bit to a point where he can, like, refocus himself. And he looks to you and goes, "The two of you dare to kill my pets, my precious children? You will pay!" And he is going to go in for, once again, another strike against you. He's going to use his one support action to change that into a barely a success. Are you going to use your hinder action?
Yes, I am. She is going to. He thrusts forward, and, like, she was almost animalistically, just hatefully, frenziedly attacking him just a moment ago, but when he strikes forward, it's almost like just a light switch flips, and her reflexes, she just literally leans to the side, and he stumbles past her.
Mm-hmm. He is certainly on his back foot, and it is in that moment that the simultaneous action from Mystery Man happens. That is a hit. That is a hit! Oh, no. Oh my god. Fucking Corvus can't even hinder that enough to matter. So what is that? That is arm and leg. Okay, so the flamethrower once again ignites. You feel the heat burn past you. You feel it flare up the temperature rising behind you as the flames, the napalm, cover Corvus, who has just tripped over as you sidestepped him, and you do a glance behind you and see that he is once again engulfed in flame. He is rolling on the floor, somehow barely alive, but his arms, his legs, his torso, it's all burning away. Every morsel of flesh that would let him do anything, that would let him move, that would let him create agency in this world for himself, are just turning into bubbling grease as you hear that even his own throat gives way to the screams of pain. He isn't dead, believe it or not, but he ain't a fucking issue.
He's not really alive though, is he?
No, it is your turn. There is still one man dog on the field, and a dying man behind you. What do you do?
I'm gonna slash at the dog.
Go for it.
I'll support that.
All right.
To bring it up to a 6.
Yeah. That is. They don't have any hinder actions, so that is enough. You. Feel free to flavor you slaying the last dog it's just gotten to a point where it's pulled itself off of the floor from where it stumbled from the sheer force of its own attack. It just barely has got its senses about himself again. How do you finish it off?
Seeing this, at this point, he's just another factor to be disposed of, and Vex just... As he gets to his feet and the flames continue billowing behind Vex, she just unceremoniously just slices one of her blades through his neck.
There is a brief moment as you watch the crimson run down his neck, and he stumbles backwards as you watch that his head rolls back, exposing pretty much everything within his throat, only barely being held on by half his spinal cord as he, almost entirely decapitated, falls to the ground. Now, Corvus is alive. I am, however, ending combat here. You look down at Corvus, who is blackened at this point. There is all that remains unburnt is like the upper right-hand side of his head. You can see that one of his eyes has remained untouched, his nose and upper lip also managing to be relatively intact. It's almost quite unsettling just how untouched that portion of his face is. And you can see that he is just barely using the last remnants of his arms to pathetically try and drag himself away from you. You see the guy with the flamethrower. He sees that things have wrapped up and begins jogging over to you. You've got a second before he gets up to you. Would you like to do anything?
She steps over to Corvus, or what remains of him, and on those remains just puts her heavy boot down onto whatever tattered skeletal ligature remains of his shoulder, and moves her foot such that his face is turned up towards her. And there he sees this tall, blood-soaked, heavily damaged woman who... It's an odd contrast where she similarly is torn to pieces in various places, yet rather than reacting to this pain in some way, all that he can really... All of that pain seems focused in her eyes. Her just gleaming blood-red eyes as her heart works in overtime to make up the difference from her lost blood and pieces. Her eyes have turned this crimson color, and she stares down at him and says the first and last word she's spoken to this man. Worm. And levels her gun and just blasts his fucking skull to pieces.
The cacophonous, singular boom of your oversized pistol rings out, and there is a splatter of crimson to act as a exclamation point to the charred corpse that is his body. It is in that moment that the gentleman with the flamethrower, not particularly worse for wear, brings his jog to a stop next to you, slinging his flamethrower to his side with a strap, and looks to you and just goes, well, if you weren't going to do it, I was. Thanks for their help. He's going to make a roll to see if he recognizes you. He does not. He kind of looks you over, no recognition of who you are on his face, and just goes, oh, geez, I'm sorry. You got really beat up on my account. Hold it. Sit down. I've got a couple of basic skills in this kind of thing. Do you oblige?
Yeah, what happens is, as he's speaking to her, she's still just, like, staring at the spot where Corvus's head was, just at the blackened remains on the ground. As he starts rummaging, she turns her head towards him, and again, that same... It's almost it's unsettling how one can actually see the hatred and bloodlust physically manifested on her face, with how her eyes and expression look. And she stares at him for a moment, and after a second, seems to almost remember that, like, almost remember who he is, and that he was, she was originally trying to help him, and that, the remembers almost that the battle is done, blinks a couple of times, takes a couple of deep, haggard breaths, and then, after another moment, would finally put her gun away and sit down and cooperate with what he's saying.
Yeah, you sit down fairly wordlessly. You see he kind of registers that was, a pretty intense ordeal for you, and just kind of starts to look you over. It's in this moment, I believe, you have a leg part that lets you regenerate.
Yes, so...
Yeah.
So inside of Vex's femurs, she has... This is the cybernetic enhancement I was talking about. Is essentially I forget how exactly we described it originally, but it's essentially a device that that efficiently pumps, like, all of the, biological components throughout her bloodstream that are, focused on regeneration, rebuilding, in a more efficient manner than the body itself is able to do. And as long as that part is intact at the end of a battle, her legs can be fixed.
Yes, because that's like their immediate area of effect is anything that's in the leg region. So yeah, he's kind of looking at you, and he kind of watches as he's looking you over, and the horrible burn scars that you've got on your right thigh, they just, like, as if watching time reverse, you see those burns just... They don't wipe away completely by any means, but they go from, a freshly made napalm burn into, not barely even a scar. It looks more like a birthmark. And you know that will probably fade with a little bit of time as well. And he sees that, and he goes, "Oh, wow, you got some of those nanite implants? Not bad." He kind of is looking you over and realizing just how decked out you are. And he goes, "You've got some serious gear on you."
She doesn't say anything, but what she would do is her hood is probably torn somewhat from the attack that pierced into her skull earlier. She pulls down the remains of that, revealing her grayish hair, and kind of just silently points to the back of her head, indicating that this is the most severe wound that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, you pull back your hood, and you feel something roll down your neck. You point at it, and he kind of rolls around to the back of you, and you hear him like make this sound of like panic, basically, of just like, are you? He's just like stammering over his words, basically. He just kind of is frozen looking at you. There is this like tension which has suddenly filled the air. He's kind of unsure what to do or say, and you're not sure why.
Just patch it best you can. Doesn't have to be pretty.
Do you want me to put it back in? And you hear the slight squelch as he picks up from out of your hood where it landed what you assume to be the thing you just felt roll down your neck, and you kind of turn around to glance at it. It seems to be a piece of your brain matter.
Yes.
He just suddenly extremely scared, just kind of puts the brain back into your skull, and he gets out some bandages and some rags to essentially just jigsaw the part of your skull which has fallen out and like hold it in place. There was just a slurry of gore that is down your neck as a result of that strike. And he kind of looks to you, and he just goes, do you mind me if I ask what your name is? I'm Leon. I'm with the Foundling Creed. I really appreciate what you did back there for me.
She leans forward and, again, rather unsettlingly, just kind of uses a hand and, like, almost uses her hood as, like, a napkin and just kind of wipes some of the gore off of her neck. And kind of flinches as she, like, gently pokes the grim sort of patch job that this guy did, but at least just feels that it is secure enough, and she sighs again. I'll tell you my name if you tell me what your deal with that guy was.
He kind of like centers himself. You get the feeling that, considering he's Foundling Creed, it's less that he's like thrown off by the gore. This motherfucker probably eats people, right? That's definitely not what it is. Like, I don't have to say that it is just, he is just like, how the fuck are you alive? And he recenters himself, and kind of like puts that question out of his mind, and then just goes, Corvus, he's a collector who's coming up on the scene. He has been running a complete fucking riot through the contested zone here. I thought I'd try my hand at taking care of him. I've got a flamethrower made at home, so I thought if anyone's got a chance of taking care of this dude, it'll be me. I was not prepared for just how many of those things he had, though. That being said, he was causing issues around here. I wouldn't be surprised if, collectors lose a bit of a foothold now.
Slowly, she stands to her feet again, still very shaky.
You feel your senses kind of come back to you, and that electrified sensation of your nervous system sort of fades away, and you once again, and you feel that, like, air of kind of, you know, blood kind of fade away from you a little bit. You're definitely still beaten and battered, and like you definitely are still feeling the haze of the fight, but you know, you feel a little bit more collected as a result of that.
She finally, after another moment, turns to him, and the red in her eyes has noticeably faded, though it is still there somewhat. As for my name, you can call me Vex. As for how I'm alive, well, she looks to the side a bit and kind of prepares to give the explanation that she typically gives to people who have seen her live through this kind of thing. There are certain experimental technologies that aren't widely available yet. You can think of me as a kind of guinea pig for them.
Oh, are you Section C?
No. I'm a dredge.
Yeah, you say it just as he's putting it together, and he's just like, holy shit, you guys have got access to some pretty fucking cutting edge stuff, Jesus. Yeah, well, thanks for getting your brains bashed out in place of me. I mean, I've already said I appreciate it so many times, but, really, thanks. I don't know if I would have held up too much longer against them.
Leon, not to be a dick here, right? She kind of gestures up and down into herself. Getting repairs done to your body isn't exactly cheap.
Oh, right, yeah, oh, I'm so sorry, I just completely, sorry, I was out of it. Yeah, no, I'll absolutely cover any repairs that you need, and, that's the least I can do. Consider myself, consider a favor owed. I hang around some of the outer parts of the border, just to the east of here. It's pretty much why I've been on the forefront of this. He like gives you an address for like one of the kind of more communal eating halls in Foundling territory. And he's just like, yeah, just ask around for Leon. If they ask Leon who, just, you know, tell him crazy guy who makes the flamethrowers, you'll find me.
She reaches into her pack, pulls out a crummy-looking notebook, writes down the address. Thanks.
You know that you'll basically be able to, like, tell Stitch, hey, you know, bill Leon at this address and he'll be able to collect the money. You don't have to, like, you know, go get the money from Leon. But, yeah, give yourself, for that combat, 2 favor. And also give yourself the boon of basically your next repairs from Stitch are free. So, you know, you have effectively gained like 4 favor here, but 2 of it is already accounted for, essentially.
Yep, makes sense.
So that puts you up to 3, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He basically, Leon at this point just kind of, you know, takes his leave, leaves you to whatever it was you were doing. He very clearly seems to have this kind of, like, demeanor about him, which is seemingly fairly accepting of the excuse that you gave. He seems to be a rather, like, jovial individual when he's not dealing with horrible pieces of shit like Corvus. And, yeah, he makes his way. You are free to continue onwards. You are fairly close to the location that you know was listed by Eferai.
And she is going to do that. She likely takes a moment or two to just flip through her notebook again, not even looking at the pages, just listening to them as they're flipped through. Does her own little patches of, like, you know, covering the worst of the scarring she has, stopping the bleeding on her shoulder. But after a few minutes, yep, she would once again, just as though nothing happened, start slinking through the streets again, just trying to be quick and quiet.